What's up, guys? This is Andre, and today I'm going to do another video to talk more about in depth the consequences of kind of the trade war that is happening between China and the US. The first video that I posted about the impact on e-commerce got kind of quite some views in the last 48 hours, and I received some comment and some DM to explain more about the importance of what Donald Trump and his administration, and just as the US is doing right now. I'm going to put a map because I went online and checked like a lot of numbers that were coming out from a lot of sources to kind of like not put out fake numbers and fake news, but this right there, I'm going to put the map of the difference that was for me the most shocking, which is the difference between the US as the largest trading partners versus China in the year 2000 versus 2024. And you can see the map went from almost 80% blue, except of course like most of Asian countries and Africa, to almost 90% red all over the world. And people don't understand. Everybody's like crying wolf online, the economics, the trades, like the stock market. But it's and this is where you also see what Trump is doing for the US, what he's been saying for the tariffs on China. The guy has been talking about it since the 80s, 90s. You can see it on like TV. But the consequences are big. Like, we had, as I said, Americans had so many years of getting wrecked by China and their impact. I talk about personal experiences because I've traveled and lived in different places in the world. I've been to Asia, I've been to South America, I lived 1 year in Argentina, I've been to Africa, I visited most of Europe, I went to the Middle East, I went everywhere. And I could see the real impact of China in the world, and especially in those countries that I've been. A lot of Americans, unfortunately, it's just a bad culture, but people don't travel, so they don't really see the impact that, for example, China has, and why everybody's like going crazy about China. I always will be shocked the way China has conquered the world, leading into literally a war of economics against the US, that the US every year we're losing. If you go, for example, to Africa, on the map, it literally say there is no country where before the US were the number one trading partners, where now it's China. The reason why, and people don't know about it, but most of those African countries, which are, sorry to say, but most of them are corrupt, the most corrupt countries in the world. Those leaders, they don't really care about their population. They sign treaties with China. All the infrastructures, for example, if you go to South Africa, if you go to the Ivory Coast, all those port of entries, the big ports in Africa, are owned by the Chinese. The people that build buildings over there, Chinese company. The people that do real estate over there, Chinese company. I had one of my friends, he's from the Ivory Coast. The guy told me that most of those new skyscrapers, luxury ones, owned by who? Chinese. Okay, you go everywhere in Africa, the roads built by who? Chinese company. Okay, and China, they sign treaties with those countries that have a lot of minerals, raw materials, like Trump would say. This is why he's like pushing a lot on Ukraine and getting those raw materials. But they're getting wrecked. The US lost their power over the world. And people tend to forget the US dollar is the number one currency in the world. And if the US lose their partners, and being the number one economy as a trading partners, the economy, the value of the money is not, it's going to go down. It's not going to be worth anything. So you see on the map that, of course, China is leading all Asia. Since the war with like Russia, they took over Russia too, because they're one of their main partners, especially since the gas and like the petrol and everything what's been happening since the war in Ukraine, they get it from China. One other thing, for example, during COVID, Australia, number one people doing real estate in Australia, Chinese. They are everywhere. People, I saw a video this morning about Kevin O'Leary, the Mr. Wonderful guy that wear multiple watches to his wrist, and the guy that do Shark Tank. he was suggesting to tariff China 400%. And he's right about it. He literally say, Chinese don't invent things. They steal things and then they get it better. You can say whatever. At the end of the day, if you look at what Chinese has invented for the world or for every like kind of new technological way, it hasn't come from China. They take it from the US, they steal it, they steal their IP, and then they make it better. Because, and I've been personally affected by it. I have a company that I sell home decors, right? One of my home decor that we built it for a year with our design team, is literally selling right now on Alibaba. We can't do nothing. We can't go to the Chinese court and be saying, oh, they're stealing our IP, because it doesn't work. The laws in China are completely different from the laws that we have here in the US or the European Union or even South America. Okay, so this thing is very important to know, because the stakes are really higher than what most people realize. Okay, if the US lost their trust in the financial system level, not just economically but also in terms of being reliable of its institution, the risk is far more than a bad quarter of GDP. Okay, the risk, its position as the core global finance, trade, and security. The uncomfortable reality that people needs to really get is that you cannot rebuild manufacturing in the US or restore strength without cheap. Okay, and the first thing is having a stable money first. Right now, the US dollar is not a stable money. It's not really, really, really stable. Okay, you cannot print your way out of a trust crisis. Okay, the US government cannot keep printing money every day. The Chinese, they can, because nobody's telling them anything. On the commercial organization, okay, that the World or Commerce Organization, nobody is telling anything to the Chinese, because they are afraid, because they know that they own everything. And for example, recently we had the big Panama Canal. Everybody was like, oh, why is he talking about the Panama Canal? If you go, for example, to countries like El Salvador went from the worst country to one of the most secure. Why? The Chinese came there, they rebuilt everything. If you go to El Salvador, the capital, you even have in building Chinese letters everywhere. You go to the port of El Salvador, Chinese everywhere, Chinese containers everywhere. And the Panama Canal is one of the main trading way. So the US do businesses. And if the Chinese control in kind of like the Suez Canal in Egypt and in the Middle East, the US are going to lose all their power. And this is why Trump was really putting pressure on the Chinese and the Panama government to get it back. And technically, if you look at history, the Panama Canal was first started by us, the French, but you know, we're not reliable for a lot of things. We dropped it, and then the Americans took it back. And people tend to forget, Panama is not even a real country. It was kind of like a state from Colombia that got left over there, and then they took over. But technically, the Panama Canal is owned by the Americans. They are the one that built it. They are the one that lost actually a lot of people building it. But all that to say that this Chinese influence need to stop, because the problem with the Chinese, nobody knows how much money they have. Nobody knows what they're printing as money. And they come and they be like, okay, we're going to take care of your ports. We're going to build it up, and then you're going to owe us money. But the problem is that when you do business deal with that, like that, you're basically to their mercy. They can do whatever they want. And then they control their economy, the real estate, and they control everything. And this is why the US needs to have a strong leadership all over the world. This is why Trump is fighting hard to get the US back on the map, okay? And I know it's painful because everybody's going crazy, but having a strong leadership is necessary, okay? For rebuilding the confidence of everybody worldwide. It feels chaotic what he's doing right now. I think today in the morning it was 125% tariffs, and the Chinese, they counterattack with like more. But it's way bigger than that, okay? The story is that it's not about just tariffs or rates or trade. It's about survival in a world where alliances, capital flows, and influence are shifting rapidly, okay? The Chinese, they cannot be the main trading partners of most countries in the world. And in the map that I show you, I keep showing there, they are the number one in 80% of all the world, which is terrible, guys. Like I'm not saying like it's the Chinese won't lead the world, but we cannot have a communist country leading the world like that. Okay, the US were still number one. They're still number one because they have the dollars. If you can see on the map here, it stopped literally next to Ecuador. Why? Because Ecuador is actually the only South American country where its principal money, the money they use daily to buy, it's the dollars. And so up to there, and if you can see in the small thing right there, Canada, Costa Rica, and all of that, it's getting taken over by the Chinese. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Like for people that have been doing businesses with the Chinese, it's weird because they have such a, they have consistency, they're efficient in everything, but you don't want them. Nobody, look at how many Chinese leave China. Okay, nobody wants the Chinese influence. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys like this video. Let me know in the comment if you agree and if you understand a little bit better about the trade that is happening. Everything feels chaotic, but at the end of the day, it's just about putting back the US on the map and putting a leadership that was way better for the world. Even though a lot of people may say it wasn't, trust me, nobody wants the leadership of China. We know what it's been happening with Hong Kong, with Taiwan. Nobody wants that, okay? Chinese have the printing money, but the US have still the power, the bargaining power, that is on their hand. So if you have any questions or any comment, just don't forget to like and subscribe and put a comment on the video. See you guys.